The ultimate sign of the rapture just appeared in Israel. You heard that right? Something big happening could be a game changer. But what is it? And what does it mean? Well, get ready because we'll dive into this video today to uncover the details and understand the significance. It's not every day that we witness such remarkable events, especially regarding prophecy and the future of Israel. And this end-time sign is something that could be fulfilling some terrifying prophecy. So buckle up and join me as we explore what's happening in Israel and how it could be connected to the construction of the Third Temple. Are you ready? The Temple in Jerusalem, also known as the Holy Temple, was a sacred place for Israelites and Jews. There were two temples built on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The first temple was constructed around the 10th century BCE, during Solomon's reign. Sadly, it was destroyed in 587 BCE by the Babylonians. Later, the second temple was built after the Babylonian Empire fell to the Persian Empire. However, it met a similar fate during the Roman siege in 70 CE. People have discussed building a third temple, but it hasn't happened yet. However, the temple remains important in Judaism. It's a symbol of hope and future redemption. Jews remember it in prayers, songs, art, and architecture. Besides Judaism, the temple and the Temple Mount are significant in Islam and Christianity. In Arabic, Jerusalem is called Bait al-Maqdis, which links it to the temple. Muslims built two grand structures there, the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, seen as very holy. Muslims call the site Al-Aqsa Mosque Compound, or Haram al-Sharif, considering it the third holiest place in Islam. Christians believe that Jesus was at the temple during important events in his life. The Crusaders even called the Dome of the Rock Templum Domini, meaning Temple of the Lord. Why build the third temple? Isaiah 8:18 says, "Here am I and the children the Lord has given me. We are signs and symbols in Israel from the Lord Almighty who dwells on Mount Zion." You might wonder, if the sanctuary was a copy and a shadow of what is in heaven, Hebrews 8:5, and Jesus serves in the true tabernacle set up by the Lord, Hebrews 8:2, why build the Holy Temple? The Holy Temple in Jerusalem wasn't just a building, it was where God's presence dwelled on earth. In Exodus 25:8, God said, "Let them construct a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell among them." This dwelling forms the word Shekinah, describing God's divine presence. Ezekiel saw this divine presence leave the temple, Ezekiel 10:18-19, and return. In Ezekiel 43:4-7, he describes the glory of the Lord entering the temple, saying, "This is the place of my throne and where I will live among the Israelites forever." Rambam, a Jewish philosopher, said the temple has eternal significance. In his book called The Laws of God's Chosen House, he talked about the temple and its main purposes. First, it was a place to show people that God was present above a special cover on the Ark of the Covenant. This is written in Exodus 25:22. "Above the cover between the two cherubim that are over the Ark of the Testimony, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites." Second, it was where people could offer sacrifices to God. But since the Second Temple was destroyed in AD 70, Jewish people haven't been able to offer these sacrifices. This means they can't follow 202 out of the 613 commandments in the Torah. Without a temple, Jewish people now worship in synagogues and study the Torah. Instead of sacrificing animals, they pray, repent, and give to charity. Some people believe that animal sacrifices are gone forever, but according to the Bible, this isn't true. The prophet Ezekiel said that in a future temple, these sacrifices would happen again. It says in Ezekiel 42:13, "The north and south rooms facing the temple courtyard are the priests' rooms, where the priests who approach the Lord will eat the most holy offerings. There, they will put the most holy offerings, the grain offerings, the sin offerings, and the guilt offerings, for the place is holy." This raises a big question for the Jewish community and all followers of Yeshua. Will the next temple, known as the Third Temple, be like Ezekiel's temple, where God's presence returns, or will it be something else? Preparation of the third temple and the arrival of the red heifer. The Sanhedrin, a big group, is trying to help rebuild the temple. They're growing farms and forests to make it like it used to be. Plants are really important for temple rituals. However, not everyone agrees on how much power the Sanhedrin should have, and some worry about what it might do to the environment. From Moses' brother Aaron's family, special priests called Kohanim are getting ready for the temple. Even though they can't do everything they usually do without the temple, people still respect them in Jewish communities. One tricky thing is making ashes from a special red cow used in ceremonies. A red heifer is a special cow mentioned in the Bible, specifically in the book of Numbers 19:3. God tells Moses and Aaron to bring a red cow without any blemishes or defects. This cow shouldn't have been used for any work, like plowing fields. The Torah explains that the heifer is burned and its ashes are mixed into water. People who became impure by touching a dead body would be purified by having this water sprinkled on them twice. Once, 3 days after touching the corpse, and again 7 days later. According to Jewish tradition, a red heifer was brought to Eleazar, the priest, Aaron's son, and its ashes were used for the ritual. From then until the end of the first temple period, those ashes were used. During the second temple period, more red heifers were used for the same purpose. And recently, 5 perfectly red heifers arrived in Israel from a ranch in Texas. They're needed for a special ritual to make people pure if they've touched a dead body. This ritual is important for the priests to work in a future temple. The heifers are all under a year old. If they stay completely red and don't have any marks that would make them unfit, they can be used to make ashes needed by Jewish law. These ashes purify people who've touched a dead body. Following Israeli rules, the prized cows were taken to Haifa, where they'll be quarantined for at least 7 days. After that, they'll go to 2 different places in Israel, one of which will be open to the public. They'll be looked after until they're old enough to be used for the rituals, which happens when they're 3. These heifers came to Israel with the help of a group called Bone Israel, which included Jews and Christians. Byron Stinson, a rancher from Texas, raised the cows. A ceremony for the cows was held at Ben Gurion Airport, and officials from the Temple Institute and the Ministry of Jerusalem and Heritage were present. Stinson, the rancher, said he didn't plan to do this, but now he's probably the best at finding red heifers in Texas. He believes in the Bible and thinks the Jews being back in Israel means they need to build a temple. He says the red heifer is the key to making the temple work right. The farmer who raised the cows is a Christian who was really interested in this rule from the Bible. Because of this, he started breeding cows with the right traits. Challenges in building the third temple. Building the third temple comes with many challenges, both political and religious. One big issue is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. It's a really important place for all 3 main monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. People think it's where the old temples were. But now, important Islamic buildings like the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock are there, making things complicated. The Temple Mount is a big part of the tension between Arabs and Israelis. Palestinians who are Muslim face restrictions on going there, and Israelis doing excavations nearby adds to the problem. Muslims are really worried about what will happen to the holy site. Recent attack on Israel by Iran. The barrage of drones and missiles heading towards Israel overnight on Sunday ushered in a new phase of tension, uncertainty, and confrontation in the Middle East. Iran initiated this unprecedented attack in retaliation to a suspected Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria, earlier this month. This event signifies a new chapter in the ongoing discord between the 2 states, which has been brewing for years and escalated since Israel declared war on Hamas last October. The next course of action remains unclear, but Israel is receiving calls from its allies to step away from the brink of open warfare and opt for de-escalation. During the immense aerial attack overnight, more than 300 projectiles were launched toward Israel, including approximately 170 drones and over 120 ballistic missiles. Around 350 rockets were fired from Iran, Iraq, Yemen, and Lebanon's Hezbollah. As reported by Israel Defense Forces, IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari. However, Israel's aerial defense systems, along with its allies, intercepted 99% of the projectiles, with only a small number reaching Israeli territory. Tehran's attack was aimed at the Nevatim Air Base, according to an Iranian army official on Sunday. This official alleged that this was the site from which Israel launched an earlier strike on the Iranian consulate in April. The Iranian ballistic missiles that reached Israel hit the airbase in the southern part of the country, causing only minor structural damage, according to Hagari. Despite the attack, the base is operational and continues its activities, with planes still using it. A senior U.S. military official informed reporters on Sunday that the U.S. assessed there's no significant damage within Israel itself. U.S. ships in the eastern Mediterranean Sea destroyed between 4 and 6 Iranian ballistic missiles during the attack. Additionally, aircraft in the region shot down over 70 Iranian one-way UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, heading towards Israel. Furthermore, the U.S. Army Patriot missile battery intercepted one ballistic missile in the vicinity of Erbil, Iraq. Why did the attack take place? Israel and Iran have a long history of rivalry and have been involved in a covert conflict for many years. Israel's ongoing war against Hamas, which began after attacks by the militant group on October 7th, has further intensified these tensions. Additionally, Iranian-backed forces in Iraq and Syria have targeted U.S. military positions. At the same time, Iran's leaders have warned that attacks by its allies will continue until Israel's actions in Gaza cease. Tensions escalated in early April when Iran accused Israel of bombing its diplomatic compound in Syria. This airstrike destroyed the consulate building in Damascus. It resulted in the deaths of at least 7 officials, including prominent figures like Mohammad Reza Zahedi, a top commander in Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards. Zahedi's death was significant, reminiscent of the assassination of IRGC General Qasem Soleimani, ordered by former U.S. President Donald Trump in 2020. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed that Israel would face consequences for the attack, while President Ebrahim Raisi stated that it would not go unanswered. Hezbollah, an Iran-backed Lebanese militant group, also promised retaliation for the strike. Since then, tensions have remained high, with both the U.S. and Israel issuing warnings about intelligence indicating the possibility of further Iranian attacks. What does the Bible prophet Ezekiel tell us? There have been tough times before, like how the IDF handled the first Palestinian Intifada in December 1987, or how they responded to the second Intifada in September 2000. But this feels worse. Could it be a prophecy? The Bible talks about a time called the last days, when the whole world will turn against Israel. In the Old Testament, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, it's clear that no nation will help Israel when the war of Gog and Magog happens in these last days. Ezekiel 38:16. Many pastors and Bible scholars speculate that Ezekiel is talking about a leader, possibly from Russia, who will lead an attack on Israel. He'll have support from countries like Iran, Turkey, Sudan, and others from Central Asia and Africa. But what's striking about the prophecy is that it says Israel will be completely on its own during this invasion, abandoned even by its closest friends. Now let's look at what the prophet Zechariah has to say. Zechariah 12:2. 3 shows another example of all nations turning against Israel in the end times. Here's what it says. Thus declares the Lord who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him. Behold, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all the peoples around, and when the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. It will come about on that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the people. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. This passage from Zechariah paints a vivid picture of a future where Jerusalem becomes a focal point of conflict. It describes how nations from all around will come against Israel and how Jerusalem will become a heavy burden for them. It's a powerful warning of what's to come in the end times. In Zechariah's prophetic vision, Jerusalem, Israel's eternal capital, becomes the focal point of global attention and enmity. God supernaturally turns Jerusalem into a symbol of turmoil and conflict, causing all the surrounding nations to become intoxicated with the idea that solving Israel's problem is paramount. In these end times, it's as if the world's leaders are collectively drunk on the belief that Israel, particularly Jerusalem, is the source of all their troubles. This attitude leads them to unite against Israel, viewing it as a target for resolution. However, there's a divine twist to this scenario. God also warns that those who come against Israel will face severe consequences. The same nations that align against Jerusalem will find themselves facing divine judgment and experiencing their own downfall. So while the nations may think they're acting in their best interests by targeting Israel, they're actually setting themselves up for divine retribution. What does the book of Revelation tell us? And in the New Testament, particularly in the book of Revelation authored by the Apostle John, we encounter profound prophecies concerning the end of days. John repeatedly foretells a time when all nations will align against Israel, orchestrated by Satan's deception. One striking example can be found in Revelation 12, where John describes Satan being cast down to earth and deceiving the entire world to turn against Israel and the Jewish people, subjecting them to severe persecution. This dire situation led to a forced exodus of the Jewish people from Israel into the wilderness, believed by many scholars to be the Petra region in modern-day Jordan. Despite the intense persecution and displacement, the prophecy assures that God will provide protection for the Jewish people during their time in the wilderness. They will be shielded for 1,260 days. Revelation 12:5-6, indicating divine intervention amidst their tribulation. In Revelation 16, the Apostle John unveils another harrowing vision of the end times. He describes how demonic forces will orchestrate a gathering of the kings of the whole world for a cataclysmic conflict against Israel. This apocalyptic war will witness the convergence of global military powers in a location known as Har Megiddo in Hebrew, famously recognized as Armageddon in English, situated in the Jezreel Valley of northern Israel. The prophecy forewarns a time when the entire world will align against Israel, symbolizing the pinnacle of enmity towards God's chosen nation. Despite the overwhelming odds stacked against Israel, the text assures that God will intervene supernaturally to bring about the destruction and judgment of these enemies. However, before executing divine judgment, God permits this mass turning of nations against Israel, demonstrating his sovereign control over world events. This period of intense hostility serves as a precursor to the ultimate fulfillment of God's purposes and the establishment of his righteous rule. Are we there yet? We're not quite at the prophesied point where the entire world turns against Israel and the Jewish people, but we're definitely heading in that direction. The next significant prophetic event isn't Armageddon. It's the War of Gog and Magog, outlined in Ezekiel 38 and 39. This war precedes what's known in the Old Testament as Daniel's 7th week and in the New Testament as the Tribulation or the Great Tribulation. Refer to the book of Revelation for more on this. Only God knows when these prophecies might unfold. They could happen soon, maybe even in our lifetime, but no one other than God can say. It's crucial to keep a close watch because the pieces seem to fall into place for this prophesied war. The Russian leader is forming alliances with Iran, Turkey, and Sudan. Furthermore, nations worldwide are growing more hostile towards Israel and the Jewish people. Surprisingly, even Israel's longtime ally, the United States, seems to be distancing itself from Israel. These signs indicate a shifting landscape that aligns with the prophetic warnings laid out in Scripture. So what do you think of the recent war or attack by Iran on Israel? Is this the end of the time war? Will the third temple never be built? Comment below your views and subscribe for more.